Hello, and welcome to SG Squared. Steve Gladen, Global Small Groups Pastor at Saddleback Church, pulls from his 20-plus years of small group ministry experience to encourage and equip listeners to lead more effective small group ministry. Sit back, learn, and enjoy SG Squared with Steve Gladen.
Welcome to SG Squared, Steve Gladen on small groups. Thank you so much for tuning in. Derek here along with your other host, Saddleback Church's Connections Pastor, Steve Gladen.
Hey everybody, good to have you on this show. Got some exciting stuff for you as we continue this little series we got rolling.
And before we get to that exciting stuff, Steve, at the time of this recording, I must inform you that your beloved Ohio State Buckeyes have fallen from grace. They've fallen from the number one top spot in the national recruiting rankings all the way down to, God forbid, number 4 behind Notre Dame, Alabama, and Texas. I got to ask you, are you taking some strong sleeping pills these days?
Dude, I mean, first off, are you looking at today's rankings? Because
that was today.
That was today already.
That was today.
Yeah, we went from 3 to 5. You're enjoying yourself way too much. So
you're down to number 4 now.
Okay, well, yeah, same problem I have. But let's settle it on the field, just like in ministry. Let's settle it. I'm tired of churches bickering back and forth. Let's talk about how many people are getting saved at your church and how many people are getting discipled. So you stink. What a way to set up the show and just throttle my innocent little Ohio State Buckeyes.
If Daniel Thomas, If Daniel Thomas, if you're out there listening, I know he's got a big grin on his face right now, and he's just going, yes.
Yeah, Daniel is our Alabama fan on the small group network team. We should fire him. We should fire him just because of that. But
Hey, it's proof that we've got unity in the spirit, right? So, in this episode,
the diversity of our college football nuts out there.
Right. So, in this episode, we're continuing part 2 of a 3-part series unveiling the 3 leadership pipelines you must have in your group's ministry. And listeners, if you missed part 1, just click the link in the show notes so you can make sure you get that foundational level there on part 1. But Steve, set up part 2 for us now.
Yeah, so in part 2, last week, just to refresh your mind, we looked at the small group host, or some of you may call them small group leaders. And for us, it's what's that developmental process from taking them to be a host to a leader. And now, this particular pipeline that we're looking at, or this pathway or the developmental process, we're looking at our community leaders. And there's lots of different languages that people have for the people who help you manage your small group leaders. But for us, they're called community leaders. And so, as you'll see, if you're watching on YouTube, you're going to see it in living color, and you're going to see it, just throughout the show as we talk about it. But for those of you that are listening on your device, then you may want to make sure you download in the show notes the picture. There's actually 2 pictures we're going to describe here. There's going to be a picture about the community leader village, or the small group host village, and then we're going to talk to you about the pathway for the community leader. But we're talking about taking a community leader from a CL to a minister. And these are all volunteer folks at Saddleback Church. They're people that are passionate, but they need to be developed. And they're good at shepherding, but they've got to be the best shepherd that they can be. So with no further ado, let me have you look at a diagram that we have called the village. Unless, Derek, there's a piece of the show that I'm missing. Nope, he's giving me the shake my head. I remember seeing my wife Lisa do that to me sometimes too. So, but it wasn't quite like that one. But part of what I want to help you understand is that when you're looking at your small group ministry, it's going to be super, super important that you build the proper pieces around it so that it can scale. Because if you don't, then what's going to happen is that you're going to fall apart, and it's going to fall under its own weight. And because you just can't do everything, you don't have enough time. You'll never have enough staff. You'll never have enough money. But so you've got to work smarter, not harder, as Ecclesiastes 10:10 talks about. So with that in mind, also in your show notes is going to be a link to a podcast that Derek and I did called 5 Ways to Reimagine Coaching. And when you're looking at that, some people call them coaches. We call them community leaders. You can follow along on that podcast to find out why we changed up and all of that. But part of what happened is that a lot of strategy in small group ministry is that you'll have a structure. You'll have like 5 small group leaders, and you'll have a coach above them or a community leader. And then over 5 community leaders, you'll have, a pastor or a district zone leader, or you'll have something like that. And part of what I want to explore with you is kind of shaking that up. And as you listen to the reimagining piece, you'll see how we have developed from what we had 25 plus years ago to what we have today. But one of the key components I want to talk to you about before you look at this pathway is the village. And just as there is an idiom, it takes a village to raise a child, which I was noticing, Derek, that I said it wrong last show, but well, forgive me on that. But just as it takes a village to raise a child, it takes a village to raise a healthy small group. Now, there is no doubt that there is a primary force in that's happening, and that's the relational component. We see throughout Scripture that Jesus tells us, that he spent time with the disciples. Both Paul and Peter talk about spending time with the people and leading by their example, which takes time together. And in the same way, as you're looking at that diagram, we have in the center of the village a healthy group, which is what we are all trying to do. Now, everyone defines it maybe a little bit different. If you're not familiar with what we do, we try to balance the 5 verbs in the Great Commission and the Great Commandment to define a healthy group. Now, what I want you to see is that you need to answer the question, who are the village people, not the band, but who are, felt like YMCA? No, we won't go there. Derek already throttled me on singing on another story, another time. But you've got to say, who are the people in the village that speak into your small group ministry? And you may say, why is that so important? Because just as a parent needs to know who is speaking into their child and what they're speaking into their child so that you can grow the child the way you want them to. There's been many people that are people that we didn't want in our village that were speaking into our kids. And it's very healthy for you to say that they're not the primary people we want speaking into your life. And so it's very important for you in this diagram just to look at who's in your village. Now, I'm just going to walk you through very quickly because in the other podcasts that I mentioned that I'll go into a little bit more detailed. But we're going to start at the very bottom there, and there's leader, LT1, LT2, and those are our training pieces that we just talked about in the last show about the host pathway. There's social media and how you're using social media to reinforce what you want in a healthy group. We have an FAQ that answers common questions. There are people asking what is health. We have our website, our church website that helps promote that. We have spiritual retreats that we do. Our senior pastor, even though we're in that middle ground process at the time of this recording of handing it off from Pastor Rick to Pastor Andy, his role will play an important part. We have our weekend services. Does Temple Courts, do they edify house to house and the importance of house to house? Do you have a newsletter that goes out, electronic or physical? I don't think anyone does physical these days, but an electronic newsletter. Do they reinforce what a healthy group is? Your small group pastors, the people who are paid at your church to work on small group ministry, are they saying what you want them to say? Do you have a small group table where people can interact after the service? Do you have a specific page for your small group ministry? And then at the bottom there, a little bit more in living color, is a community leader. And that community leader is going to be super important in what they do for us. They help train, they help do a little bit of administration, but more importantly, they connect people to groups, and they give care. That person who is a volunteer in your church, or you may be in a church where you can pay them, they are a critical component of your village. They would be the primary person that helps drive health outside of your paid small group point person on your church staff. They are the two primary voices. The others are secondary and tertiary models that help build health in your small groups. Now, as we get teed up for this next piece, I want you to watch this video that we have for you so you can understand how we are developing our community leaders. And just like in the last episode, we tried to make all of our resources available. We wish they could be free, but you got to keep the boat afloat. And so there is a fee, but we try to do everything electronically so that you can produce these things yourselves and have the transcripts that are needed. But what's going to be super important for you to understand is that the pathway has got to be clear. How are you moving them from a community leader to a minister? So, Derek, I think we're ready just to transition and watch this.
One thing I think is missing, Steve, from this village is a church bulletin.
Ooh, this is where better together is helpful, because, how you, there are many people in the village, and dude, I'm writing it down now because it's important as we're redefining. And this is a great exercise. Good point for you to do this, because this is a good point. Yearly, we try to get around and look at the village and say, what's changed? Because oftentimes things change and things need to be added. Some things need to be deleted. So, touche, my brother.
Boom. All right, here we go to the main section.
Hey, Saddleback community leaders. This is Steve Gladen. I'm the pastor of Connections at Saddleback Church across all of our campuses. If I haven't had a chance to personally meet you, I look forward to at one of our many events that we have in store for you that I'll be talking to you about in this developmental pathway we have for you. One of the things I want to walk through is that the heart behind this is to help you move from a community leader to being a minister of the gospel at Saddleback Church. One of the things that we know you have a passion for, and that is to help set the eternal destiny of small group hosts as you develop them into leaders to become what God has asked them to do, and as they work with the people of Saddleback Church to help develop them into followers of Christ that are balancing the 5 biblical purposes that Jesus prayed in John 17, that he modeled for us in Acts chapter 2, that he explained to us so vividly in the Great Commission and the Great Commandment, and what you see played out normatively throughout all of the New Testaments in the letters and the epistles. So what I want to do is walk you through our development pathway that we have in store for you. And some of you have already done this. Some of you are brand new. And so I want to let you know that we have an intentional plan, if you will go on it with us, so that we can help you learn the things and do the things that will glorify Christ in the best way possible and make an eternal difference on this planet. Now, let me walk you through these 4 phases that we have and what we have generally in each one of the phases. One of them is called the discovering phase, and this is where we're talking about discovering your calling. Is this the road that God would have you on to have an eternal impact on people's lives? Then we're going to talk about developing your foundation. How do you get the foundation under you so that when all the changing experiences of life happen, you'll be able to continue on as a community leader? Then we're going to talk about how you can deepen your commitment, how you can deepen your commitment so that you can help host see that maybe they might be a future community leader. And then we're going to talk about how you can dedicate your life, how you can move from success to significance for the kingdom of God. So let me walk you through each one of these phases. Let's wind it all the way back in the discovering phase. Now, the first thing we hope you will have done is that you have experienced all the trainings that we have for a host. How do we move a host to a leader? And I want to encourage you to, with your connections pastor, to unpack all of those resources and trainings, because if you haven't done it, how are you going to help them understand what they're supposed to do? So hopefully in this phase, this is something that you've already done and you've already experienced. A couple of the resources that we have for you, though, is an online course called CL Quickstart. Obviously, CL always stands for Community Leader. And in the CL Quickstart, we walk you through 7 short vignettes that are going to help you understand what is this you're getting involved in and what does it look like. And what you're going to realize is how very simple that this is going to be for you as somebody who you think you're an ordinary person, but what God does is he specializes in taking ordinary people and turning them into extraordinary people who work for the kingdom. The other resource you're going to get in this phase is our CL Pocket Guide. Now, if you've ever been to a coffee shop, particularly Starbucks, they used to have what was called the Green Apron booklet. And in their Green Apron, they would have a booklet that would kind of give them just the overview of what they were supposed to do as an employee of Starbucks, and had a cheat sheet on so many of the drinks that they had to make that were a little bit more complex. And in the CL Pocket Guide, you're going to learn your roadmap to engage with your host on how you can be a friend to them, how you can be a leader to them, and how you can be a coach to them. And in no shocking fashion, friend, leader, and coach all have an acrostic to them. But what I love about this pocket guide is that not only do we describe what it means to become a friend, what it means to become a leader, what it means to become a coach, but we have practical examples, 7 to 10 practical examples under each one of these that can help you understand how you can be successful with you as a community leader to your small group host. Then in the next phase, we have the developing phase, which I referenced. In the developing phase, we have a number of resources for you. One of them is that we have a community group page that you're going to be invited to. We want you to be a part of it so that you can be in an online group with us, so that you can understand when resources roll out, what other community leaders are doing. If you have a problem, you can put the question inside the group, and you can be able to get some great people. At Saddleback Church, we have hundreds and hundreds of community leaders that are right alongside you, that are going to walk with you and help you along the way. But this community leader group is going to be here for you. Then we have 2 other resources for you. One of them is an online course called CL Align. And it's one of the courses that your connection pastor watched when they were onboarded onto our staff, so that you can understand it. Actually, your campus pastor went through it too. And it's just helping you align to what it means to be a part of the small group ministry here at Saddleback Church. As you know, God designed the church in 2 delivery systems, temple courts and house to house. And you've heard our leadership talk about that from the platform many, many times. And there's no difference here, but it's important that you understand half of our delivery system that you play a role in. And then we have what we call a personal leader training that's available for you called CL Principles. It's 5 modules that walk you through some of the principles that will help you just engage with your host in a very powerful way. As we move to the deepening phase, again, we have a similar set of resources for you, but they're a little bit different. One of them is that we have a website that has a link for training for you. If you go to saddleback.com/small groups, you'll see right in there a place where it says, hey, I'm a community leader. And it has a number of great resources that can help you along the way as you deepen your commitment. Along with that, We have the ability for you, if you have the gift of teaching, to be able to help train in our training pathway for our host that will walk them through the different aspects of their training pathway to help them fulfill that ultimate purpose of developing the 5 purposes that Jesus talks about in them individually and as a group. Then one of the things that we have for you that I just love is the CL Advanced course. That's where I get to talk to you very personally over a number of sessions, helping you deepen those skill sets that you will need to be able to do this. I don't know if you know this or not, but when I came on at Saddleback, I was the only person or only staff person that was the small groups pastor. And in essence, I was the community leader and helping to recruit community leaders. It's fun to see us as we've grown and developed through that. But I want to take you through a lot of the learnings that we have learned over the last 25 years, or I have learned over the last 25 years here at Saddleback Church in helping you advance in your CL leadership. Then when we go to dedicating phase or dedication of your life, we have a resource for you called the Small Group Network. Again, the Small Group Network is something that I started in February of 2007 to be able to help small group point people across the world to be able to connect with resources, to connect them personally, to strategically resource them, and to be able to help them impact globally. And the same is true for you, and you can jump into the smallgroupnetwork.com so that you can be a part of getting the resources and joining that community group so that you can understand and learn from them. But 2 of the personal resources I'm super excited about is one of them is a community huddle. And this is where periodically your connections pastor will be gathering you with the community leaders at your campus or with community leaders from another campus, just so that you can have fellowship, that you can talk through pretty much what we call the 4 Ps. What's a praise that's happening? What's something good that's happening with you as a community leader? What is a problem that you're having? What is a prayer request that you need to work out in your life? And then what are ways that we can just practically come around and learn from you so that we can get the resources developed that you will need. Another personal resource we have, and this is one of my favorites, and I alluded to it at the top of this show, is we have every year a community leader retreat. It's a highlight that where I get to speak to you, and we have a number of things that happen through this retreat. But the point is, it's an opportunity for you to get away from the church, to pray and think about the church and what it means to be a community leader and how we work in your life to help you be all that God wants you to be. And then one of the final things that we have in this particular phase is that we have partnered with Rockbridge Seminary for you to take the same courses that our pastors take in order to be licensed as licensed to the gospel to be a minister at Saddleback Church. And I understand now, as you may be listening to this, you're like going, whoa, these are some big steps. What I would encourage you to do is take the first step first. Don't get lost in the way, but you may be called to be one of the ministers at Saddleback Church. But we want you to start with the discovering phase and slowly move into the developing phase, then the deepening, and then see what God is going to do through you in the dedicating process of your life. I'm excited that you are on this journey. I'm excited to play a role with you. The other thing I would want you to know is that what you may not see through this pathway is we have a village of resources that help your group that you're overseeing to become the group that we want them to be. And as the old adage goes, it takes a village to raise your kids, which if any of you have had kids, you will know what that means in a heartbeat. But we also have a village that surrounds you and your small group to help them do the things that God wants them to do. I know that was a lot of information. Your connections pastor can unpack it with you, but I'm super excited for all that God's got in store for you and Saddleback Church as we work to impact not only the areas where our campuses are at, but this planet. God bless you.
Well, thanks for watching or listening to this, wherever you were watching or listening from. And we want to make sure that you stay tuned for part 3 next time, as we are going to look at how to develop our group members. And this is an essential piece that we might not always think about, how to develop our group members. So you're going to want to tune into that. And we hope that this entire series really encourages you and equips you to lead healthier, better, more vibrant small group ministries. And we just want to thank you for spending part of your day with us. And until next time, goodbye.
See you later, guys.
Thank you for listening to Steve Gladen on Small Groups. If you like what you've heard, make sure you subscribe to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your favorite podcasts. If you want to learn more, make sure you check out smallgroupnetwork.com for more resources.